Hi everybody, welcome to another Yarn Scrap Friday with me, Laura, and in this week's video we're following on from last week's tutorial. Now if you missed last Friday's crochet tutorial, we made this cute tiny little cat here, and in this video I'm going to be showing you how to make the little witch's hat, the tiny pumpkin, and also another little surprise if we have time, so stay tuned for that. But for this tutorial, same as the cat, we're going to be using a sport baby weight yarn, so it's a yarn weight of 2. And we're going to be needing, I'm going to use a cream, so I'm going to make a cream coloured pumpkin. You may want to go with orange, obviously, and green for the stem, but I'm going to use a little bit of brown, so kind of a little bit of a different pumpkin. Some purple for the hat, and maybe a darker brown as well, which we'll reveal later. Also going to need a yarn needle, a pair of scissors, and with that a crochet hook, obviously a 2mm crochet hook. You're also going to need a tiny weeny little bit of toy stuffing. You can use yarn scraps as well for the pumpkin. Okay, let's begin. Okay, so we're going to start off with first, I think, the tiny pumpkin. So for the pumpkin, we are going to be using a pumpkin colour. So I'm going to be using a cream colour, which has got knotted. That's a good start, isn't it? It's a good start to this video. But what we're going to do is we are going to work a slip knot to begin. And we're going to chain 6 to begin. Chain 6. So chain 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So chain 6, and we're going to do 1 single crochet. So this pattern's in US terminology, so in UK terms that's a double crochet. We do 1 single crochet in our second chain from our hook. So we don't count the loop on a hook as our first chain. There's our second, and into there we're going to do a single crochet. And we're going to do 1 single crochet, I've already messed it up, 1 single crochet in each chain across. So go into the next chain, work a single crochet, and the next chain until you've got a stitch count of 5. Okay, so single crochet in the next chain and a single crochet in the last chain. Okay, so you've got something looks like that. Then what we're going to do is we're going to do a chain 1, don't count that as a stitch, turn, and we're going to do 1 single crochet in each back loop only. And we're going to do this for quite a few rows. So rather than going into the stitch as normal under both loops, that V, we're just going to go under the back loop, so the top part of that V, and work our single crochet in there instead. I'm going to do that all the way across. Just find that back loop, go down the middle of that V and work a single crochet, and do 1 single crochet in each back loop across, keeping a stitch count of 5. And we're going to do that, we're going to repeat that for how many rows? Rows 2 to 14. So this is row 2. So just find that last back loop. When you get to the end, we're just going to chain 1 and turn. Again, don't count that as a stitch, and just do the same thing again. Just work onto that back loop only and work 1 single crochet in each back loop. And we're going to do that rows 2 to 14. So in total, including row 2 and this row, is 13 rows. 13 rows. Okay, just 1 single crochet in each back loop. Do that for every row. Find that last one, last back loop. Okay, and you want to do that for 13 rows in total. So if we move that, I'm going to do a blue Peter here. If you're in the UK, you'll know what that means. So here's one I prepared earlier. So if you keep going, you should end up with something that looks like this. So in total, including the first row, you'll have 14 rows. So don't worry if you've got 13 rows or 15 rows. It's fine. You just want to have a length of just back loops worked. And then what we're going to do, cut our yarn. So cut your yarn. And then we're just going to pull that through, that loop through. And we're going to get our yarn needle. And we're going to roll this up into a small tube. Let's get our yarn needle, and we're going to join both short ends and just sew the ends together. Okay, I'm going to go through that first stitch again. Okay, and do that all the way across into each stitch. And there should be 5 in total. Okay, just coming up to the last one. Okay, so you've got something that looks like this, a little tube. And what we're going to do is we're going to sew up the top now. We're going to drawstring it closed. So what we're going to do is we're just going to go around the edge. We're going to go inside, then outside, just as neatly as you can. Inside, then back to the outside. Do that all the way around, and then just pull it as you go, and it will drawstring it closed. Okay, getting back to the beginning, and then give it a nice big pull, like so, and it should bring in the bottom. And if there's any hole left, you can just sew it closed if need be. Okay, then what we're going to do is we're just going to bring our yarn to the inside, give it a nice tug, and then turn it inside out. Get the little tail end out of the way, and we're just going to sew up to the top and do the exact same thing at the top. The reason I sew up to the top is it can distort your pumpkin if you just start immediately. So I'm going to sew to the top. If you run out of yarn, then just rejoin some yarn, turn it back the other way, tuck that tail end on the inside, and do the exact same thing again. Drawstring sew this close, adding a little stuffing as you go. Then I shall come back and show you almost a finished pumpkin. Okay, so outside, then inside, just as neatly as you can. So I've added a little bit of stuffing there, and again, just keep pulling that in to drawstring it closed. And I think I'm near the end. Okay, and then we're just going to sew any remaining hole closed, and there is our little tiny white pumpkin this time. So I'm just going to hide my tail end, and then we will add a little stalk. Okay. Okay, so to add the stalk, what we're going to do is I'm going to do a brown stalk, a light brown colour, and we are just going to chain 5. So pick a stalk colour, you may just use green, but we're going to chain 5, so do a slip knot, chain 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and then we are going to cut our yarn, leave a little bit of a tail for sewing, just pull that through, and then get your yarn needle again, and we're going to sew the beginning tail end, so the smaller tail end, into our pumpkin. And then what we want to do is get the longer end, and if you turn over your little chains, you can see there just about with the dark brown, is we're going to just sew down to the bottom. So I'm going to sew into that loop, I'm going to sew into that loop just gently, do that all the way into all 5 chains. Okay, and then when you get down, you run out of chains, just sew into your pumpkin. And what this is going to do is, I'm all fingers and thumbs today. What this is going to do is, just pull that other tail end, is it's just going to curl up your stalk like so. So it curls up those chains, and then we just hide our tail ends and our pumpkin is done. Okay, so there is our complete little pumpkin. So it's just like my orange pumpkin. So it's good to do some different colours. But now we are going to move on to the little witch's hat. So for the witch's hat, it's the same yarn weight, same hook, but we're going to get our purple yarn. And what we're going to do to begin with is we're going to chain 10 to begin. So do a slip knot. And we're going to chain 10. So 1, 2, 3, 9 and 10. So chain 10. And we're going to do 1 half double crochet. So in UK terms, that's a half treble in our second chain from our hook. So there's our first chain, there's our second. So go into there and work a half double crochet. And we're going to do a half double crochet in the next chain as well. Okay. Then we're going to do 1 single crochet in the next 2 chains. So a single crochet in the next chain, single crochet in the next chain, and then we're going to slip stitch in the next 3 chains. So slip stitch in the next chain, slip stitch in the next chain, and then slip stitch in the next chain. And then you should have 2 chains left. We're just going to leave those. We're going to leave those alone. Then we're going to turn our work. So we're going to leave those chains at the end. We're going to skip the first previous slip stitch. So skip that and slip stitch in the next 2 stitches, the next 2 previous slip stitches. So we skip that first slip stitch and then we'll work a slip stitch in the next previous slip stitch and a slip stitch in the next previous slip stitch. Can be a little bit fiddly because slip stitches are very tight. Then we're going to do 1 single crochet in the next 2. So single crochet in there and single crochet in there. Then we're going to do 1 half double crochet in the last 2. So you're just matching up the stitches. Half double crochet in that last stitch. Okay, so now you're starting to get a triangle shape. We're going to chain 1 and turn, and we're going to do the same thing again. We're going to do 1 half double crochet in the first 2, so skip that chain 1, do a half double crochet in that first stitch, half double crochet in the next stitch, single crochet in the next stitch, single crochet in the next stitch, then slip stitch in the last 2 stitches. Try and keep those loose so they'll be easier to find and work into. Okay, that last one's a bit messy. Let's try that again. Slip stitch in, almost lost it again, slip stitch in the last one. Okay, then we're going to repeat that. We're going to do a chain 1 and turn, and we're going to do rows 4, 5, 6 and 7. We're just going to repeat rows 2 and 3. So do 4 more rows, just matching up those stitches. So here, this end, we slip stitch in the first 2. Then we work a single crochet in the next 2. And then a half double crochet in the last 2. Then we chain 1 and turn. And do the same thing again, matching up those stitches. So a half double crochet in the first 2. Single crochet in the next 2. And then a slip stitch in the last 2. And do that for 2 more rows. Okay, 2 more rows. Okay, so I've done 2 more rows. So I've gone back again, and you should end up at what I call the top, so the narrow end. And what we're going to do now is we're just going to chain 1 and turn. And this time you want to fold it in half and you want to slip stitch and join to the bottom. So if you can, go into that first slip stitch and match it up with the other side. Now avoid these little chains at the top. They do have a purpose. So let's just get those out the way and bring that through there and through the slip stitch. And we're just going to slip stitch down to the other side. So go into the next stitch, match it up with the other side. And just do that all the way to the bottom. Okay, just coming up to the last stitch. So we've slip stitched and joined along there. So we've got starting to get our little hat shape. Now we want to create the brim. So to do that, we're going to chain 2. And then we're going to work 1 double crochet. So in UK terms, that's a treble, in roughly where the last stitch is. Just by those chains, work a double crochet. And what you want to do is, as neatly as you can, work groups of 2 double crochet all the way around the bottom edge until you've got, including the chain 2, which will count as a double crochet, we'll have 24 double crochets. So as neatly as you can, just roughly somewhere around here, we're going to work 2 double crochet. 1 and 2. And then roughly a little bit further along, just find a little bit of yarn to work into, and into there work 2 double crochet. And just keep doing that all the way around until you've got 24 double crochets, including those 2 chains. Okay. And the last 2, just squeeze in there, 23 and 24. You should naturally and just fit 24, hopefully. And then we just want to, you can skip the 2 chains if they're a bit small, just join, slip stitch in that first double crochet, it's fine. And then we are going to cut our yarn and pull that through. And there is our basic little witch's hat. Now I need to do something with this end, and we're going to do a similar thing to what we did with the pumpkin. We just want to, I've left this really to create a more pointed top. So again, if you can find those little 2 loops, we've got 2 chains, so there should be 2 loops. Just sew into there, down to the hat. And then just sew into the inside of the hat. And that should just pull down and create a little picot right on the top, which makes it just a little bit more pointed. You don't have to do that, but it's just something I added. And then we can just leave that on the inside. And you can use the tail end to sew onto the little cat. So let's bring this guy out here, and you can sew that on to your little cat if you want to. So now we've got a little bonus. What we're going to do actually first is neaten off this edge. So get our yarn needle, do an invisible join. So we're going to skip the next stitch, go into the next stitch. And then coming back, find that last stitch we made, but just go into the back loop only. And then that creates a nice invisible join and you can't see where it is. And then we can just sew this to the inside and hide our tail end. Okay, so moving on to a little bonus pattern to go with our little witch's cat pumpkin set is I have designed a tiny little cauldron, of course, with some, I don't know what's cooking inside of this, but I'm just going to show you quickly how to make the little cauldron as well, which is a little fun extra. So for that, we are going to grab some brown yarn, and hopefully this will show up on camera. Work a little slip knot, and I just need to turn my notes over so I can remember what we're doing. Now you can either work into a magic circle, magic ring, but we're going to use the chain 4 method. So we're going to chain 4 2, 3, and 4. I'm going to put our hook into the first chain, bring the yarn through the first chain and straight through the loop on your hook, and you've got a tiny little loop of chains. I'm going to do a little chain 1, don't count that as a stitch though. Then putting your hook into the center, be careful not to put it in that first chain which looks bigger, into the center, then just wrapping it around the chains. Going to work a single crochet, and we want 8 single crochet in this 4 chain loop. So that's 1, 2, 7, and one more, 8. And I carried my tail in, so I should be able to just pull that hole closed, or you can sew it closed. And we're going to slip stitch into our first single crochet. So 2, 4, 6, 8. Slip stitch into there. And that's the end of the first round, if my camera wants to focus. And then what we're going to do is we're going to do a little chain 1. And going back into the same stitch you just slip stitched into, we'll do 2 single crochet. So 1 and another one in there, 2. It's a little bit too dark, this brown yarn, so hopefully it shows up okay. And work 2 single crochet in each stitch around until you've got a stitch count of 16. So 2 single crochet in the next stitch, 2 single crochet in the next stitch. Okay, so 2 single crochet in each stitch around. Okay, just coming up to the last stitch. So just check you've got a stitch count of 16. And then just slip stitch into your first single crochet to join the round. Okay, so by the end of that round, you should have a stitch count of 16. And what we're going to do now is we're going to do a little chain 1. And starting in the same stitch as your previous slip stitch, we do 1 single crochet. And we're going to do 1 single crochet in each stitch around, keeping a stitch count of 16. And we're going to do that for 5 rounds. Okay, 5 rounds. So 1 single crochet in each stitch around, keeping a stitch count of 16. I'm going to do that for 5 rounds. Okay, so I shall do that and then I shall come back. It'll take a little while. Okay, so I've just done 5 rounds of just 1 single crochet in each stitch around, and hopefully you've got something that looks a little bit like a bowl. So I'm just going to work the last single crochet and then just slip stitch in the first single crochet to join. And I'm really wishing I had shown you in a different lighter color, so sorry about that. But what we're going to do now is we're going to do 1 single crochet front post stitch. Now if you don't know how to do front post stitches or back post stitches, just work into the front loop only if it's a bit easier. But what we're going to do is just do a little chain 1. And what you want to do is start off by going into the same stitch we just slip stitched into from the front. But instead of bringing the yarn through, we're going to bring the hook through the next stitch from the back. And that just catches this little loop of yarn here. And then we're going to bring the yarn under that and work a single crochet. Then we're going to go into that second stitch that we came through from the back, and then go into the third stitch from the back and catch the next bit of yarn. Bring the yarn through. And we're going to do that all the way round, starting the stitch in the last one worked, going to front to back, then coming through the next stitch from the back to the front, bringing the yarn under and working a single crochet. And that's a front post stitch. I'm going to do that all the way around until we've got a stitch count of 16. So I shall do that and I'll come back. But if that is too hard, just work into the front loop only, if it's a bit easier. Okay, when you get to the end, what you want to do is go into that last stitch and then come out in your previous slip stitch, or what I call the fake stitch, just to get that last front post stitch. And what's good about front post stitches is it just puts them on the side. And then what we're going to do is we're going to slip stitch into our first single crochet front post stitch. We're going to do a little chain 1, and then going back into that first single crochet, we're going to do 2 single crochet. 1 and 2, and just work 2 single crochet in each stitch around, and you'll have a final stitch count of 24. So 2 in the next stitch, 2 in the next stitch, and so on. Okay, coming up to the last 2 stitches, then slip stitch into your first single crochet, and then we're going to leave a little bit of a tail, cut your yarn, and all my yarn's falling on the floor. Pull that through, and then you've either got a little bowl hat or in our case a little cauldron. But what we want to do is create the handle. So we're going to get our yarn needle, and I'm just going to neaten this off. I'm going to do a nice invisible join again. So skip the next stitch, go into the next stitch, then come back through your last stitch but the back loop only. That creates a nice invisible join. And then matching up with the other side to about here, we're just going to sew into a stitch. And then leave a nice height for your handle. Come up through the next stitch. Don't pull too much because you'll pull your handle through, and come back down. And then we're just going to hide our tail end somewhere to secure that. Okay. And that is our finished little bonus pattern, which I added to this tutorial. And what you can do now is, if you want to, you can get some toy stuffing, and this looks fantastic as cauldron steam just coming out there. And you could also grab some yarn scraps. Really is a yarn scrap Friday this week, of some oranges, reds and yellows for the fire, and put your little cauldron on there. And this one I even added some little green bits to look like there's weird food growing in the cauldron. And there we go, that is the end of our tutorial. So we've ended up with 2 little cats and a little witch's hat. Which I might have to, I forgot to say that on, so keep that separate, and a couple of little pumpkins. Maybe they're making a pumpkin soup. But I hope you enjoyed that tutorial. I hope you managed to follow along. It's pretty hot here, so hopefully I haven't rushed this too much. But a huge thank you, as always, to our monthly subscription members for helping make these free tutorials possible. And if you'd like to know more about our Happy Bay Plus monthly subscription, where we've got a crochet magazine, we've got behind the scenes podcasts and so much more, then do check it out for lots of bonus content. And I will see you soon for some more crochet crafting fun. Thanks for watching, guys. Bye.